Good afternoon. This is David. I'm going to be your moderator today. The CPS Energy Board of Trustees thanks you for joining their April meeting by teleconference. I will now turn the call over to Chair Steen.
Thank you very much, and I want to call to order the April 27th, 2020 regular meeting of the CPS Energy Board of Trustees. And we'll begin by having a roll call, and I'll ask our General Counsel, Carolyn Shellman, to conduct that roll call.
Yes, sir. Mr. Steen?
Present.
Dr. Mackey?
Present.
Mr. Kelly?
Present.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Present.
Mayor Nuremberg?
Here.
Mr. Steen, we do have a quorum.
All right. Agenda item 2 is our safety message. And, Mayor, I'm glad you could join us today. Thank you for everything you're doing. Again, I want to give you an opportunity under this safety message to address our CPS Energy family about the COVID-19 situation. Would you please, Mayor?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon, everyone, and my fellow trustees on the board. I'll be very brief. Today we are expecting to hear some orders from the governor about how the cities of Texas will begin to proceed through a safe and phased reopening, we hope. Everything that we've heard thus far suggests that we are going to continue to be led by public health guidance, and he is going to talk a little bit about how Texas will begin to open up through various phases that reach certain thresholds within public health guidance that allows us to begin to open things up. We here locally are going to be watching because we have also begun a process through economic and public health transition teams to set up a process by which we can better understand where infections are occurring in our community and begin to move towards various phases of opening activities and businesses up with regard to social distancing restrictions that we've put in place. Over the next week, we will be hearing a little bit more about that as the reports come out. Tomorrow, the City Council will have a 1 o'clock meeting where they will be briefed by our public health transition team about what that looks like from the public health standpoint and what thresholds and conditions and systems need to be in place for us to do this. An economic transition team is also in place to go over best practices and sector by sector operational guidance in terms of how we can comply with the public health experts' expectations in terms of how we can begin to move through the next several months. I'll just give you a quick update about where we are with cases. We now have just over 1,200 confirmed COVID-19 cases in San Antonio. We are holding at 43 deceased, and we are starting to see more people recover from the virus, which is good. We still are in the process of ramping up testing. We have good capacity to test. Unfortunately, we haven't seen the numbers that we want to in terms of people coming out for the test. That will continue to increase, we hope, over the next few weeks so we can get a better assessment of how we progress through this pandemic, as in every other city in Texas is going through the same process. So we feel like when we look at what else is happening across the country and certainly here in Texas, we have responded very well to the initial prevention and preparations and now ultimately the crisis response. I think I'll stop right there, and I just, again, I want to tell you all how much we appreciate your support and partnership. CPS has done a great job in pivoting to some of the important urgent needs of our community, including those who unfortunately have felt the pain of this crisis through job loss and ultimately the inability to pay utilities and other essentials, which our community is rallying behind and making programs and resources available to help in the near term. The city is going through a process right now, along with the county to make sure that we address those urgent needs in a comprehensive manner. And, of course, as we start to transition into more of an open economy, which, again, is going to be staged and it's going to be careful and it's not going to be immediate, but once we do get through those phases, that we're doing so in a more resilient and long-term view. So I'll stop right there. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But, again, thank you all very much for having us here.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And included in our safety message is an opportunity for our CEO to give her thoughts. Ms. Gold-Williams?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair Steen, and thank you very much, Mayor, for, again, being on top of the situation for our community and having outreach between yourself and Eric to the utilities, including SAWS and VIA, so that we can have great communication and support of everything. I really don't have anything to add except we're all in here to help our community, and I will leave my operational comments to later in when I'm giving my update. But thank you all again, and thanks for the board for all of their support.
Thank you very much. And let's move to agenda item 3, which is the invocation, and it's going to be given by Ms. Sandra Poulos, who is our, I hope I get this right, Deputy General Counsel. Did I get that correct?
That is correct, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Poulos.
We come before you today to give you honor and praise. Thank you for every gift that we have been given. We thank you for the opportunity to come and gather this day. We ask for your hand of blessing on this meeting of the CPS Energy Board of Trustees. We ask that you would guide and direct our meeting so that it is full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Thank you for helping us to accomplish our work and our goals this day. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Poulos. Let's move to agenda item 4, which is public comment. This is a time where we provide an opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts on any of this meeting's posted agenda items. For this meeting, we do not have any registered speakers, but as a reminder, members of the public do not have to attend a board meeting to communicate with the board or with CPS Energy. There are several different communication channels. You can email us at feedback@cpsenergy.com, by phone at 210-353-2222, or by mail, P.O. Box 1771, San Antonio, Texas 78296. Let's move on to the CEO's report, which is agenda item 6. Ms. Gold-Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair Steen. So my update is going to touch on topics that are relevant very much so under this period, and in general talk about CPS Energy as we continue to handle our operations. The first thing I want to focus on is we are very much watching the landscape in front of us, and we very much, again, appreciate the local leadership from the mayor and the judge and all of our elected officials. And we also appreciate the governor's approach in trying to be thoughtful and work through a phased opening up of the Texas economy. Our perspective is that we are going to, though, stay in our blue, white, and orange strategic positions for the foreseeable 30 days while we monitor as the community gets opened up. And we'll adjust based upon understanding the details of the governor's plans. But what I really mean by that is we, again, have our blue team, our individuals that work on the maintenance and operation of our distribution, transmission, and generation assets. And they are there working close to the infrastructure, and we're working close and focusing on emergent issues that pop up. This still includes things like people have, unfortunately, in some cases, taken down poles, distribution lines, and need to be restored. Also, storms and all those things continue. And and all of our activity has to continue. So we will watch as the phased approach happens. We will be very involved and supportive, but we won't automatically just go back to the way it was. We are preparing our guidance and information for our employees and requirements. We anticipate that our employees will continue to need to wear masks, and we assume that the mayor and the judge will focus on this and the phased approach. But for our employees working, we expect them to continue to wear masks to be helpful, and to still kind of control the possibility of spread, community spread, and also protect them and our customers. We will continue to practice social distancing, and we will continue to use technology as one of the best ways for us to reach out to others and to reach out internally inside the organization. We will, in turn, be continuing to communicate to our customers. We, again, were very glad to suspend disconnects. This is an extended period of time, but we have done this in the past. We do it in the summer when it's extremely hot, and then we do it over the December holidays, as I've discussed before. But we believe that the suspension of holidays should go honored for some time, particularly as we're monitoring the landscape. So we think that's a minimum of 30 days after the community is opened up. But we will keep the community informed, and again, still encourage customers to call us so we can help them with any assistance that we can. In terms of, we have the payment plan, which is great, and it helps us eliminate the need to apply late fees. But we have other assistance programs that we can also help customers, again, as the community is coming out of this pandemic period. At a minimum, sometime after the 30 days, we will also begin a promotion to discuss when we would start activating disconnects again. And at a minimum, that period will be for 30 days. And again, we will continue to work with customers. Any customer working with us, any customer on a payment plan will avoid disconnection because we'll be managing their payments in a good way for them that is helpful. We will be thoughtful. We will talk to each customer separately. Our energy advisors are prepared and skilled and able to help each customer with their particular concerns and timing. And we stand ready, again, to spend as much time as we need on the phone to help every single customer. So this is how we're approaching, and the whole aspect of the community being opened up. And I will continue to give the board updates along the way as we're making progress. Another item I want to talk about is we will do a public statement about this whole thing of the 30-day monitoring period and a minimum of 30 days promotion period about whether and when, not whether, but when we will open up for starting disconnect. We will put out a public statement for that. This week, we will also put out a press release that talks about our REAP program, our Residential Energy Assistance partnership that we have with the City of San Antonio and with the county. We have been in this partnership for many years, and it has worked extremely well. The city and the county do the intake on the applications, and working with council members and commissioners and anyone across the community, they are referred to two different departments between the two entities to process the applications. On the back end, we put in a minimum of $1 million a year, but we also take care of the promotional events. REAP is considered a United Way program. We do Grills Giving as a fundraiser. We do, and then we also promote, and people can add a little extra on their bill, and that little extra goes to help customers who need assistance with their bills. We're going to do a press release and additional promotion, again, to really show that how much people can help each other, help our neighbors, our friends, our relatives in times like these when no one could have ever anticipated the impacts of this pandemic. So That will be going out this week, and we will continue to look for ways to fundraise. I will say the plans that we have for fundraising Grills Giving is in November, so we feel optimistic, just like Fiesta. When we get back to November, we'll be able to continue to raise money for Grills Giving. But in the interim, the best way, again, is to ask and create easy vehicles for people to contribute. We have online methods for people to pay and to contribute, and all those monies go straight to people's bills. The other thing I want to talk about a bit, again, I can't always say enough that our construction project for our headquarters continues, and it continues to be on budget. We do anticipate that we might have a couple of weeks of delay, but our team is working diligently on to see if we can make that time up and still get in there in the September timeframe. I reported at the special meeting that S&P had reached out to us specifically and wanted an update about what was happening in our community with the economics and with our customers and how we are all working together to manage through this trying time. We had that conversation, and that was a WebEx on April 14th. I just wanted to highlight that the Fitch call is this week on April 30th, and the Moody's call is on May 4th. I want to make it a standard part of my presentation. I have, but I haven't described it as much, but I want to continue to say that we are continuing to work on the RAC. Again, COVID is taking the majority of our time and taking care of our people and responding to the changes in the landscape is taking the predominant amount of time. But I do have individuals that are working on the RFP. The responses are in, and they're beginning to be assessed. And so, again, I want to say that the rate advisory committee work continues through the state. I will continue, again, to provide updates on that. And then my last piece is to talk a little bit about the agenda today. So we will talk about several items. We've been streamlining our agenda. This one has a little bit more content on it, and so as a preview, item 7A, Gary Gold will give us a preview of what we call the preliminary COVID-19 financial impacts. And the way to anticipate this, it is we have a budget which was almost break even at about right under $4 million of net income, and some tightness on our financial metrics for this year. COVID-19 has the challenge because if it's affecting the entire economy, it, of course, could affect businesses and customers, as we talked about. And so we have made an estimate on what that might do to demand and other aspects of our business model. And so you'll see on the extreme, we have projected with March actuals and estimates for every other month of the fiscal year, we predicted what we call basically or refer to a high impact case and a moderate impact case. And then we still have our budget case. I think the biggest thing I want to tell the board and the public from this perspective, we are not saying that we know exactly how we're going to come up. We are doing our very best. We are going to save some costs, but we are incurring other costs for things like supplies, safety supplies, and additional costs associated with, again, handling the needs in a bit more stressful time as we had before. But we are going to continue to apply the same diligence that we always have that the board expects of us. Look to control costs as much as we can. Look for things that we can defer later. Continue to focus on our hiring freeze, except for very critical positions. And then again, if our customers are buckling down, we are buckling down. So this is a view that you will see, and it'll get updated every single month with the best information that we have. And after every month, we'll know the actuals, and we'll know the trends, and we'll also do quite a bit of analysis. So on a monthly basis, during the board meeting in particular for the month, we will give you a projection, but this will be the first one that we talk about publicly. And again, if you have any questions, you'll be able to get those explained from Gary Gold. Another item on the agenda is a vehicle procurement. We have some bucket trucks that we need to purchase over the next 5 years. This is work that we started over a year ago, and we had very good collaboration with many members of both our frontline field employees, our fleet employees, safety, management, major effort that we went to figure out what do we need to improve the bucket trucks, make them safer, more efficient, more environmentally friendly. We do need to execute on this purchase. These are capital assets. If we do not, we run the risk of having more operational issues because the older units that we have are older, less efficient, not as environmentally friendly, and probably more prone to breaking down and needing more maintenance, which is more costly. So we are actually looking to start this program to improve our efficiency and a better use of cash. And again, that update will be supported by Bert Hardesheimer. That's another item is the ratification of the waiver for late fees. We immediately responded with our approach to suspend disconnects, as we always have, and we also coupled that with the suspension of disconnects for individuals who get on a payment plan. This is going longer than any other period that we would have done in the past. And while we publicly announced that this is what we're doing on multiple occasions, to have good governance and close the loop and overall for this period, we are asking the board to ratify the decision that we have to both suspend and waive late fees. We do not set our cost structure up dependent upon late fees. They represent less than 1% of our total revenues. We would much rather have our customers maintain and pay for their actual services and manage through this difficult time together. That said, having the board support what we are doing here with the ratification of the actions that we are deploying to be helpful would be great. And we will also go over and make the same request of the council. It's just from a little bit additional context, our tariffs require the application of late fees. So again, just to make sure that when we come out and everyone's trying to check and see if we have dotted our I's and crossed our T's, this is just a really good, tight thing for us to do, and that is why it's on the agenda for the board today. I want to say that we have two appointees for the CAC, and John Leal will walk us through them. District 6, Council Member Harvada has a new appointee, Ms. Rachel Zapata, and then District 8, Councilman Pelaez has Mr. John Kelly, who will also be brought in front of the board as nominees to serve on the Citizens Advisory Committee. We are excited to have them, and the Citizens Advisory Committee continues to meet and has met through this pandemic period. Let's see. We have the audit of the annual financial statements that happens every April, like clockwork. And so Gary Gold and his team have worked very hard in coordinating the audit, but it affects many, many people. And we have a good result. The audit was, there were no major issues encountered in the audit, and we expect to have a report out on that on item 11. And I think that is all I have to the board members as a preview, and I'll just stop at this point and see if there's any questions for me.
All right. Are there any questions or comments for our CEO?
Thank you, sir.
All right. Hearing none, we'll move to agenda item 7, which is additional updates. And our CEO referred to this. Do you want to introduce it, or do you want me to just go ahead and call on Gary Gold to give the fiscal year 2021 preliminary COVID-19 financial impacts?
He is ready to go, sir, and I think they all are. So you can call on all of them. I will jump in if necessary.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Gold, please proceed.
Good afternoon. As Paula noted, I'm here to present the preliminary preliminary look at our financial impacts for fiscal year 2021, factoring in the COVID-19 impacts that we're seeing. If you would flip to page 7, as was noted, these are very preliminary results. We are still only about 1/4 of the way into our fiscal year. We still have more than 75% of the year to go. There's things that are happening around us in the economy that are going to have long-term impacts that are very hard to estimate. We are still evaluating the impacts of the stay home, work safe on our customer usage. And so our projections are very fluid. So as we look at these, again, it's important to note that these are very preliminary and subject to change throughout the year. Moving to page 8, the objectives and takeaway, we're going to look at our financial results forecast for fiscal year 2021, and then also look at the performance, our financial performance and metrics.
Mr. Gold, may I interrupt you? As we go through this, please confirm that what you're referring to, it was provided right over the internet to our customers or anybody listening in?
Yes, that is correct.
Good. And as you direct us to different pages, are those the same page numbers for the general public?
You know, I will say that the pagination is a bit off, so I'm really glad you raised that issue. So, Gary, if you could also describe the title of the page that you're working with, because the PDF number is different than the presentation number. So do your best, Gary. I would say tell them what the name of the presentation is, the page that you're on, describe the title, and maybe you give the presentation page and the PDF file page.
Okay.
Yeah,
definitely can do.
That's a little bit, you know, it's a little bit of trouble, but we want to make sure that anybody listening in can follow along with this.
Very good. You're correct. Thank you.
Okay. I will do the best I can here. So if we would flip to the slide that's titled Agenda, that is I'm sorry. Again, we are looking at the preliminary financial impacts for our fiscal year 2021. I just want to maybe start over there to be sure that we're all aligned on looking at that information. Moving to the next page, our disclaimer. As I noted earlier, we're early in our fiscal year. We are only about 1/4 of the way into our fiscal year with about 75% of our fiscal year. There are many unknowns as we look out across the economic impacts, what the long-term impacts are going to be. We're still evaluating the stay home, work safe. And so these results that we're presenting here, our projections, are very fluid, and want to make sure that we remind everybody, as Paula noted, that these are subject to change. We'll be looking at these monthly and going through these and updating this material throughout the year. Moving to the next page, titled Objectives and Takeaways. Our presentation today will look at the financial results forecast, and we will highlight our financial performance and metrics. Moving to the next page, our agenda. The items that we'll cover as part of this presentation include a look at our net income, our forecast of our flow of funds, a forecast of our key financial metrics, and then finally our actions and next steps. Moving to the next page, titled Net Income, the Potential Effects of COVID-19. Here we've provided 3 sets of information. The first column I would bring your attention to is the budget that was approved by the board in January of this year. And as Paula noted, if you move all the way to the bottom line and look at the net income that was approved as part of our budget is just under $4 million. The second column is the medium or moderate impact that we are projecting as a result of COVID-19 for fiscal year 2021. And in that column, you can see that that net income number has changed to a negative $64.8 million. Some of the key assumptions and drivers behind the change in that, and I'll start at the top looking at our operating revenues. What we have seen very preliminary at this point in the stay home, work safe, and during the last few weeks is that we have seen overall our electric sales, and we've noted there our retail, this is our end use customers, our electric sales are estimated to be about 6% lower. We've seen some increase in residential as more people are staying home, but we've seen a larger decrease in usage by commercial and industrial customers as we've seen a number of businesses temporarily close down over the last few weeks. And so the net impact is a reduction in our sales of about 6%. The second item that I would note is assumptions around bad debt. As we look forward and provide the best projections that we can about what will happen as we move forward and customers' ability to pay their bills, we're increasing our projections associated with bad debt. In our budget, we had estimated bad debt levels of about $8 million per year. We've increased that number in this current look to $28 million. And that is, we arrived at that number by looking at what happened 10 years ago during the last recession, and then increasing that percentage as a percent of revenue by about 50%. And so that resulted in a bad debt projection of about $28 million. And then the third major operating revenue assumption is related to our wholesale revenue net fuel. We've lowered our projections for the year. We had initially projected that our wholesale revenue net of fuel was going to come in somewhere around $90 million for the year. We have lowered that projection to about $40 million as we see the same impact across the state, as we expect that there will be a decline in customer demand. Loads across the state will be down as the economy continues to recover. And so the opportunities that we had been projecting in our budget, we expect those to be fewer, and we're lowering our projections to about $40 million on our wholesale revenue net fuel. To help us offset that, we are, as Paula noted, we are looking at our operating and maintenance expenses. And we have identified a few things up to this point. We're looking at a hiring freeze. Paula has talked about the suspension of our EIP program. We know that with the limited ability to travel that we should see savings in some of our travel areas. And we're continuing to look across the enterprise to see what projects could be potentially deferred into next year that would provide savings in this year without providing any unfavorable operational impacts. We're also looking at our interest and debt-related costs. We're going to be looking to see where we have opportunities and savings in potentially some refinancings throughout the year. And the combination of those operating and maintenance expenses and savings from interest and debt-related will help partially offset the decrease that we're projecting from our lower projections of revenue. Moving to the next page, titled Flow of Funds, the Potential Effects of COVID-19. Again, we're using the same assumptions that I previously spoke about. I will highlight again, we're providing the same set of information we've provided our budget. If you look to the bottom line in the budget column, you'll note that our total R&R fund additions of 257, but one number that we talked about earlier in the year as we were seeking budget approval was the remaining to the R&R of $92 million. And that was a number that we highlighted at that time that we would be watching closely in this current year and even looking forward. And as you look at the second column, the medium impact, you can see now that that remaining to R&R has decreased to $31.4 million. So that decrease of about $61 million on that particular line item right there. And as I would highlight just as one other look, if you look over to the final column, you can see that in the high impact, in this particular one, we're projecting that the impact on our overall sales could be about 2% higher than the 6%. In that scenario, you can see that the remaining to R&R would actually be at 0. Again, same assumptions around operating and maintenance expense savings, as well as looking at interest and debt-related savings through some refinancing. Moving to the next page, our key financial metrics, Part 1, the potential effects from COVID-19. This is a look here on this page at 2 of our key financial metrics, our adjusted debt service coverage and our days cash on hand. The budget, highlight for you the second column, our budgeted adjusted debt service coverage. We had projected a debt service coverage of 1.6 times coverage. Our threshold that we look to stay above, this threshold is some of the guidance that we have gotten from the rating agencies, is 1.5. And as you look further to the right, you can see the impacts, the medium and high impacts on our debt service coverage. We're currently projecting a debt service coverage of 1.45 times coverage under the medium impact. On our days cash on hand, we had budgeted 161 days cash on hand. Again, our threshold is 150 days coverage. And under our current medium impact projections, we are projecting to be right at that threshold number of 150 days. Moving to the next page, key financial metrics, Part 2. This is the third key metric that we look at, our debt capitalization. Our budget, we had budgeted 61.7. As we have been working through our financial plans, we are looking at the timing of some of our financing transactions where we can delay those or potentially reduce those amounts as a result of opportunities that we see in savings in our capital program or opportunities to reduce through our O&M. We believe that we can achieve under the medium impact a debt capitalization of 61%. That's up from where we ended fiscal year 2020, where we ended at 59.9%, which we were very excited about achieving at the end of fiscal year 2020. But as we look forward and project out for this year, we're currently projecting to end the year at 61%. As I noted, all of these numbers, our financial metrics, are all preliminary and subject to change, and we're going to work. Management is going to do everything in its power looking to implement additional mitigations to help us improve these financial metrics. Moving to the final page, our actions and next steps. As I noted, and as Paula noted, we are going to continue to monitor the COVID-19 landscape. We're early in the year, and there are many things that are going to happen over this year that are still going to be very difficult for us to predict. We're going to review our load forecasts as they continue to come in monthly. We're going to look at bad debt, our customers' abilities to pay their bills, and we're going to adjust accordingly. Throughout the year, we're going to look at our operating and capital spend to prioritize and identify cost reductions. and we'll continue to iterate and provide updates to the board throughout the year on our best projections for our fiscal year 2021 results. So with that concludes my presentation. Answer any questions that the board might have.
What are the questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Gold. Then we'll move to agenda item 7B, vehicle procurement contract, and that's Mr. Fred Bonnewell introducing Mr. Bert Hardsheimer.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees. This is Fred Bonnewell. I will be introducing this item, which is actually under the consent agenda referenced under commodity and material goods. So we are here today to request your approval for purchase authority for this vehicle procurement contract, which we will be presenting. This item relates to the purchase of bucket trucks, which are a particular 55-foot boom class truck. This purchase will allow us to replace 90 of these units over a 5-year period. Of this particular class, we have 150 in our fleet now. This will allow us to replace 90 of those units from this 55-foot class that were actually purchased back in the 2003 timeframe. The average age of these units in our industry is about 9 years apiece. This particular purchase process was accomplished with a cross-functional team representing various groups in our company over the past year, and it included our line department. This process took a long time to fully convey a new bucket truck design, which will give us more functionality and will have a significant improvement in environmental and employee safety. So now I will turn this over to Bert Hargesheimer. Bert is our Senior Director of Fleet Operations and Safety, and he will be assisted by Brian Mills, journeyman lineman, who was part of this process from our Southwest Service District. And as a point of note, Brian is on our blue team currently in the response during COVID-19. So I'll turn it over to Bert.
Good afternoon, trustees. I'm going to start on page 17, the objectives and takeaways. Two objectives and takeaways this afternoon: provide information on the consent item regarding the procurement for the vehicle purchase, and then second, to provide some context on the process and our bucket truck solution. Moving on to the agenda on page 18, we're going to cover the fleet organization, the alignment to our guiding pillars, some of the contract details, key enhancements of this bucket truck solution, and then our supply evolution. Moving on to page 19, the fleet organization. I report directly to Fred Bonnewell, and as he said, I oversee the fleet and safety functions for CPS Energy, and the fleet asset management team reports directly to me. The fleet asset management team administers the life cycle of all of our vehicles and equipment, and this team led the specification development for the bucket trucks. From left to right, it's Elizabeth Martinez, Tanya Hernandez, Juan Narvaez, Dina De La Fuente, and Martha Hernandez. Moving to the alignment to our guiding pillars on page 20. First is the objective here was to provide the right tool for the job for our linemen to keep our reliability high for our community. The second alignment that I'll identify today is the enhanced safety functionality with the direct involvement of our linemen to ensure their ability to work safely. And then third, these new bucket trucks have some additional functionality that makes them more environmentally friendly for a greener fleet. Moving on to page 21, our fleet composition. This is to provide context of how this contract fits into the big picture within our fleet. Our fleet is just under 2,500 vehicles and equipment. We currently have roughly 230 bucket trucks in our bucket truck fleet, so this contract addresses a little over a third of our bucket trucks. Moving on to the contract details. To develop the specification, page 22. To develop the specification, we had a team of linemen, mechanics, and safety working on it. In addition, we also included business unit leadership, the training department, legal, and many other departments in order to ensure we were focused on a holistic solution. As Fred said earlier, Brian Mills is going to speak in just a minute here. He's a 20-year-plus lineman with the company, and he's going to provide a little context from his perspective on our process.
Good afternoon, trustees. This is Brian Mills. Been with the company, like Bert has presented, and the functionality of the proposed new unit is safer and utilizes more features for doing our day-to-day operations. Thank you.
Moving on to page 23, key enhancements. There are many enhancements in these new bucket trucks. The rescue feature that we train all linemen on an annual basis has an improved functionality that the bucket comes much closer to the ground, so that should we need to rescue a lineman out of the bucket, it's much more facilitated. A second additional safety enhancement, which we came to with a lot of work with the manufacturers and a lot of input from our linemen, was reducing the uninsulated portion of the boom tip. This is important in the safe operation of these buckets while the linemen are doing work. The third key enhancement I'll touch on today is the APU that comes on the bucket truck provides the functionality that our linemen will not have to idle their bucket truck while they're operating the bucket, and in order to maintain the comfort in their cab. The APU runs the air conditioning and provides about 5% of the fuel of a vehicle engine compared with a diesel engine, which is what our heavy-duty trucks run on. So this provides a much greener solution for our fleet. Moving on to page 24, supply evolution. First and foremost, we at CPS Energy are committed to the electrification of our fleet. Based on the Electric Power Research Institute, also known as EPRI, they've provided projections that heavy-duty trucks will move to mass production of electrification in the 2030 time frame. So we work with our internal CPS Energy Strategic Research and Innovation team to make sure that we're ready for that, as well as we're working with them to pilot some pilot solutions of heavy-duty electric vehicles in the next few years, so that when that time frame arrives, we will be ready to take advantage of those solutions. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. That was well done. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
John, I do have a question. This is Ed Kelly. Are we buying all of these at one time? I notice the term says 5 years. Does that mean you're buying them incrementally, or will we buy all of them up front? Or what's the 5-year term mean?
Yes, sir. The 5-year term means we are planning to buy those bucket trucks over the course of 5 years, in order to stagger them in a way where we can work them in with our crews in the right way and decommission and retire older units in a systematic way. We're gonna buy roughly a fifth of them each year.
Okay, thank you.
One thing I want to touch on, that I used the term APU earlier. That stands for Auxiliary Power Unit. It's basically a small engine that runs the air conditioning unit.
This is John Steen. So you're saying that it's not till 2030 that we'll be able to buy bucket truck electrified electric bucket trucks on the market. That's the soonest.
That's the current projections. There will be, and that's when they will be mass produced. So there will be some pilot units made by manufacturers and some small batch units that we'll be taking a look at, and we're looking to test out wherever it makes sense for CPS Energy, as it's important for us to be a player in incentivizing and encouraging the industry to move toward electrification. But until they're mass produced, we don't want to buy them in bulk for our linemen. We want to make sure we've got reliable equipment for our field personnel.
All right, but looking at this purchase, Mr. Bonnewell said earlier that it would have a significant impact from an environmental viewpoint, and I just want you to expand on that. You've talked about the APU. Anything else that you'd want to tell us about?
Yeah, so the audit, it roughly is about 5% of the fuel expenditure to run the APU versus the truck, and so when the vehicle is idling, we're using a 20th of the fuel to idle the vehicle and keep the cab cool and provide the functionality for our linemen.
So when you're saying it's more environmentally friendly, that's the main feature you're talking about. Are there any others?
Yes, sir. No, that's the main feature.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. And as you mentioned, we're going to deal with this within the consent agenda, so we'll move on to that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So let's move to agenda item 8, and that's the consent agenda. And it would be one motion to approve the consent items, which are A, minutes of the regular board meeting held on March 2nd, 2020. B, minutes of the regular board meeting held on March 30th, 2020. C, payment to the City of San Antonio for March 2020. D, procurement items. Number 1, general services, Dr. Chris Euster. And number 2 is the one we just dealt with, commodity and material goods, Mr. Fred Bonnewell. So do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Mackey. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second.
I second. Oh.
I think Mr. Kelly beat you to the punch.
Yes, he did.
Trustee
No problem.
Gonzalez. So we got a second from Mr. Kelly, and so now, is there any discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's back up. Ms. Shellman, will you do the roll call?
Sure. Mr. Steen?
Oh,
Mr. Steen?
yes. Aye.
Dr. Mackey? Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mayor Nuremberg?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Good. So, yeah, it's unanimous, so the motion carries. Thank you. Let's move on to the regular agenda, item 9, resolution to waive late fees, which I understand is a ratification. And Ms. Go-Williams, that's yours, right?
Yes, sir.
Please proceed.
So I did speak of it a bit in my my overall CEO report at the beginning. We have drafted a resolution ratifying the waiver of late fees. Just as a recount again, in response to what we saw on the horizon, which was, as we all have now experienced, much deeper than we thought, we right away were able to combine the benefits of suspending disconnects with our payment plans. The system continues to work as it always does. It continues to send bills so customers are aware of their usage. Also, our managed by account information continues to be available to any customer that wants to look at it during the month. But we continue to bill services But if an individual is unable, or a company is unable to actually make those payments, again, we continually encourage them to call us. Since the system is working, what will happen automatically is when they get the bill and at a certain point of delinquency above 40 days from the time they receive their bill, they will get late fees. We are able to waive those late fees if they were on a payment plan. And if they stick on that payment plan, then they will continue to be able to not have late fees charged to them. We do not, again, put a lot of money in budgeting late fees as a practice. What we want is we want customers to receive good, reliable, affordable, resilient services, and that's the most important thing. So the waiver of late fees does not cause any huge financial impact, but it does help customers from having a bigger hurdle to climb as they're trying to navigate through this very difficult landscape. So we are asking that the board ratifies the action for us to continue to waive late fees, because this is a much longer period than what we would normally need to do. It's shorter in the summer and it's shorter in December. We will continue to be transparent with the community. We have very much promoted why it's important for us to work with them, and we are glad to have our very good energy advisors be as helpful as possible with all programs. And then to make sure, again, in hindsight, when we come out, that we have a good authority to continue with this practice, we're asking the board to ratify the practice that we are currently using in this very unusual pandemic period.
All right. So with that, I'd ask Carolyn Shellman if she would please read the resolution.
Yes, sir. This is a resolution ratifying waiver of late payment fees. Whereas, in consideration of the challenges facing our community caused by COVID-19 and the economic pressures that are related to the ongoing and evolving shelter-at-home and social distancing community directives, CPS Energy quickly announced publicly a helpful plan to temporarily suspend its process of disconnecting the electric and gas services of customers who cannot pay all or part of their utility bills. And whereas CPS Energy has historically suspended disconnects for short and definitive periods of time during the peak of the summer and the December holidays to help its customers. And whereas CPS Energy has an established payment plan program that is offered to customers who need additional time and installments to pay their bills. And whereas as a whole, CPS Energy's customers typically have a proven history of paying their monthly bills, resulting each year in a very low level of write-offs, uncollectible balances, which in turn lowers operating costs and keeps everyone's bills affordable. And whereas pursuant to CPS Energy's tariffs and the terms and conditions of service, late payment fees are customarily applied to customer account balances that are not paid in full at the end of each billing cycle. And whereas CPS Energy routinely collects approximately $7.5 million annually through late payment fees, but is willing to forego new late fee charges, in part to assist customers who cannot pay their current bills on a timely basis due to economic distress and business disruption caused by COVID-19. And whereas CPS Energy is currently asking customers needing payment assistance to call for information about helpful payment plans at 210-353-2222 to avoid interruption of their critical utility services when the disconnection suspension period ends. And whereas to ensure its updated processes are formalized and well documented, CPS Energy requests ratification from the Board of Trustees for the waiver of late fees as contained in current CPS Energy tariffs, conditioned upon each customer establishing a payment plan and making timely payments on it during the disconnection suspension period that is currently in place as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the CPS Energy Board of Trustees hereby confirms and ratifies the waiver of late fees as contained in current CPS Energy tariffs for customers who make timely payments as part of a payment plan established during the period of suspended disconnects that is currently in place due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The late fee requirements of the tariffs will be reinstated automatically when the disconnect suspension period ends, as declared by CPS Energy's President and CEO or her designee, or when the Board takes further action on this matter.
Thank you, Ms. Shellman. Mayor, I know this is something you've been strongly advocating, or have strongly advocated. Would you like to make the motion on this?
Sure, I'd be happy to, and thank you for that opportunity. I'll move to approve the item as read by the attorney.
All right. Is there a second?
Second by Trustee Gonzalez.
You're going to have to start going faster, Janie.
I know that you button.
All right. We have a motion by our mayor and the second by Trustee Gonzalez. Now, any discussion?
Let me just make one point, if I can, Chairman. At the last meeting, Dr. Mackey asked some questions about our accounts receivable, and all of us received a report dated April 22nd laying out some really good information about our accounts receivable at the company. And if you take a look at the ones that I consider where you can have problems, starting with 90 days and going out to more than 271 days, that amount has increased, but not materially. It was at 10.8% of our total accounts receivable. It's now 14.6%, but that represents, maybe $6 or $8 million. I didn't do the exact math. But number one, I want to congratulate the staff and Dr. Mackey for asking this question, because the staff did a very good job of answering it. And if, in fact, the staff continually updates this accounts receivable report, they're doing a very good job of tracking the results of our accounts receivable. I look at accounts receivable a lot because it's a big part of our balance sheet, almost $150 million. And so you want to keep your hands on that account. But I felt good when I looked at it on 2 points. One, the staff is obviously doing a good job tracking it, and two, it has gone up but not materially. So I just wanted to put that information forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. Any further discussion? Hearing none, then Ms. Shellman, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Dr. Mackey.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mayor Nuremberg.
Aye.
Chair Steen.
Aye.
Unanimously carried.
Yes, so the motion carries. Thank you. Let's move on to agenda item 10, which is appointments to the Citizens Advisory Committee, and this is a voting matter, and I'll turn it over to Mr. John Liao.
Good afternoon, members of the CPS Energy Board of Trustees. It is my privilege to present to you today appointments of two new members, Member Raquel Zapata from District 6 and John Kelly from District 8. For your reference, I will start on page 55 of the PDF and 52 of the online presentation. At the end of my presentation, I will have statements prepared for both candidates, and to let you know they are both listening in on today's meeting. Going to objectives and takeaways, we'll speak to the appointment process, highlight existing membership, speak to their actionable duties and some of their responsibilities, and then, as you mentioned, Mr. Steen, recommend new appointees for approval. Next slide on the agenda page, talk about topics and activities, some of their recent and proposed facility tours, and then make a request for approval of District 6 and 8 CAC appointments. Our appointment process. It's a 2-year term for a maximum of 3 consecutive terms, totaling 6 years. Members are all approved by the Board of Trustees and city council members nominate a candidate that resides within their district, and members of the public may nominate candidates, and candidates may also self-nominate. On the next slide, you'll see council appointees. Highlighted in blue are members in good standing with their terms. And highlighted in orange are our new members from Councilwoman Haverda, Raquel Zapata, and from Councilman Peleas, John Kelly. We do have one member in District 7 whose term has expired, but they are still able to serve as needed. The next page will show you our at-large appointments, and highlighted in orange are members of our executive committee, David Walter, Luis Acaso, and Bill Day. Some of their topics and activities they cover throughout a year is a review of our annual budget, flexible path strategies, updates on our STEP program that leads into giving feedback on our Flex STEP project. They do discuss at length substation projects, future routing and siting, just as we did a couple of months ago with Midtown. And they do get a legislative session preview. You'll note the picture highlighted on the right is the last legislative session in 2019, where the CAC members joined us for an on-campus visit with members of the delegation. Facility tours. Once we move into our new main office, they'll get a tour of our call center. They are scheduled to tour the Energy Storage Center at Southwest Research. You'll get a tour of our Energy Management Center and our Energy Market Operations Center. Both pictures show members of the CAC at our Calaveras Power Plant, and on the right in our JK Spruce 1 conference room. I will now go into each member. Ms. Raquel Zapata, Senior Program Manager at Dawson. She's been past president of Great Hearts Monte Vista Board of Directors, and she's involved in the community, including the SAPD Civilian Advisory Board, and she's a volunteer for Bridging Whole Health. John Kelly, former TxDOT San Antonio District Engineer, currently retired, previously served as a consultant with ACOM and CH2M, now both are Jacobs companies. He's the president of Crown Ridge, Texas Homeowners Association. Request for approval. We request that Raquel Zapata be the District 6 appointment made by Councilwoman Melissa Cabello-Harbida, and John Kelly be the district appointment made by Councilmember Manny Peleas. Mr. Chair, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Leal. And of course, these are important appointments for us. Did you say that the candidates are on the line with us?
They are on the listening line, sir, but I do have statements from both of them.
Oh, you do? All right. Do you want to go ahead and read those statements?
Yes, sir. Thank you. For Ms. Zapata, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Board of Trustees, for the opportunity to serve on the CAC Board. I am grateful to Councilwoman Melissa Cabello-Harbida for the opportunity to represent the citizens of District 6. I look forward to working together on CPS Energy matters, bringing forward the concerns and thoughts of District 6 citizens, and sharing important CPS Energy information with members of my district community. From Mr. Kelly, thank you, Chair Steen and members of the CPS Energy Board of Trustees. I'm looking forward to serve on the Citizens Advisory Committee and appreciate Councilman Manny Peleas' confidence in me for this opportunity to serve on behalf of District 8. As a civil engineer, I will bring thoughtful engineering perspective to the role while not losing sight of the impact CPS Energy's decisions have on the citizens who they serve, which is brought into focus by the current COVID-19 crisis. That concludes both statements, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Leal. So we need a motion to approve, and we're going to cover, Mr. Leal, both nominees in one motion, correct?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes. So I'm looking for a motion from our board on the approval.
I move.
All right.
Second.
I've got a motion from Mr. Kelly and a second from Trustee Gonzalez. Any discussion?
Let me say this, Mr. Chairman. If you take a look at these committee members, this is a very strong committee made up of outstanding individuals. And the two that are coming in now are very representative of that, both of them outstanding individuals in their fields. And so I think we have a very strong CAC, and I'm going to repeat what I've said in past sessions. I don't think we need any more committees to study what's going on at CPS. This committee, if you look at some of the issues they've studied in the past, are very substantial. They've done a great job, and so as we continue to look forward, the possibility of other committees, I'd like for us to just keep in mind we have a great committee already. Why do we need some more?
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll ask Ms. Shellman to call the roll.
Dr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mayor Nuremberg?
Aye.
Chair Steen?
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. Let's move to agenda item 11, the acceptance of annual audited financial statements. This will be Ms. Jody Dobson with Baker Tilly, but Mr. Gold, are you going to introduce this?
Yes, sir. So joining us today is Ms. Jody Dobson. She is the partner with Baker Tilly who serves as the lead on the audit here at CPS Energy. We're extremely excited to have Jody join us and present today the results on our fiscal year 2020 financial audit. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Dobson.
Thank you very much for having me with you today. So I will start on, I believe it's slide 68 in the packet. It's a CPS Energy report on fiscal year 2020 financial audit on the front cover. And actually moving right to the next page, the topics that we really want to cover today is an overview of our audit process, any internal control communications as a result of the audit, as well as some other required communications with you as those charged with governance as a result of the audit, and then answer any questions that you may have on the audit. So moving to the next page, which says Audit Overview, I always like to say as we start here, the amount of work that CPS Energy staff and management put into preparing for the audit is definitely notable. As we come in, you are a very large organization, a complex organization with a lot going on. So there's a lot of information that we have to ask for and drill into. And I'm happy to say that we get everything we need. It's organized, it's timely, staff is very responsive, and we appreciate that. And that's why we're able to be here in April presenting to you a final document. The total hours spent on the audit this year was roughly 2,800 hours, and that starts in the fall with our planning process and our preliminary field work, and then through the on-site field work and final at year-end numbers most of the month of March. This year, some of that time was on-site, some of that time was remote due to COVID, and then the reporting process goes into early April with the culmination of this presentation. The next page, continuing our audit overview and looking at the standards and the areas that we're looking at, the audit is performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards set forth by the AICPA. And based on that the first thing that we have to do is look at the key areas of risk and the processes and controls throughout the organization that may impact what we're looking at. And that allows us to design our audit process. So here we note several of the areas that we touch on or look into during this process. I won't go through all of these in detail, but one I did want to point out relates to the pension and OPEB fund and liabilities. There was a new reporting standard that was implemented this year, and so you'll see a change not in the liabilities that are reported on CPS statements, but some additional information about the actual plans included in the overall financial statements. So moving to the next slide, the objective of the audit is to obtain the reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. Really, our role is to understand your process so that we can design the test and issue our opinion. And in providing our opinion, we're letting the outside readers know that as they look at these financial statements, they're getting a fair presentation of the financial position and the operations of the entity. Happy to say that the financial statements receive what we call an unmodified or a clean opinion. That's the highest level of assurance that we can give. The next page notes internal control communication at the top of the page at 73 in the packet. And there's a AICPA standard that would outline if there were any items that came to our attention during the audit, whether it was in our intentional walk through the process or something else that came up during our tests that we felt was a material weakness or a significant deficiency in internal controls, we're required to communicate those to you. And I'm happy to report that there was none of either of these that came to our attention. That is a really high bar to set, and so I want to pause on that again and commend you for having that kind of organization. In addition to that, during our audit process, because we work with a number of different utilities and governments across the country, we are always looking for things that we can compare to the way others work. And so oftentimes there will be recommendations, things that are just for ongoing improvement. There was one of these that was identified this year related to some information technology that was communicated to management, and they have already responded to that. Moving to the next page, we have the auditor, the communications to those charged with governance. There are a number of areas that we are required to communicate to you on, and so I will just touch on these briefly. The first one is our responsibility. As I said, our responsibility is really to design the audit such that we can issue our audit opinion. The financial statements are management's responsibility. They pulled that document together. They have all the underlying information for that document. We are issuing the opinion on those statements. In addition, if there were other information that in a document that contain the financial statements, we don't really have any responsibility to that unless we are engaged to do something additional with that. That would be, for instance, when the financial statements are used in an official statement. We've communicated our plan, timing, and scope with you earlier this year. And one of the things we do is look at the accounting policies for the organization. Those are management's responsibility, but we have to understand those in order, again, to identify the risk areas and design our procedures. As I mentioned, there was one new accounting standard implemented this year, but otherwise there were no accounting policies that were unique or questionable that we would need to highlight. Accounting estimates, all financial statements have some accounting estimates in them, and what we do as part of the audit process is review the basis behind those estimates, the methodologies used for consistency and reasonableness in relation to the financial statements taken as a whole. And also the financial statement disclosures. We read through those, making sure that we're looking at, do they meet the requirements of each of the individual standards as to what needs to be disclosed, and are they clear and concise? Moving to the next page, here we're going to get into the no news information. If there were any difficulties consultations, concerns with management, corrected or uncorrected misstatements, any of those things, we'd be required to report those. There's nothing to report in any of these areas. I do want to pause and point out here that means there were no adjustments identified as part of the audit process. Again, a very high bar to set and something to be proud of for your organization. So that is my summary presentation. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on the audit process or documents.
Ms. Dobson, this is John Steen. Could you speak to the challenges that you encountered as you conducted this audit with the COVID-19 restrictions, et cetera?
Well, I will say that with the restrictions this year is something that we had not anticipated in our audit process. We have worked in a lot of different environments, and luckily with the different layers of technology that we use, we were able to pivot quite quickly and put those into place, and reached out with your team, and they were able to do the same. We've shared information electronically before, so that was not a problem. And we really just leveraged that and adjusted our communication protocols a little bit. So rather than some on-site meetings, we were using technology for frequent phone calls and email status updates to make sure everyone was on the same page, and it went very smoothly.
I'm remembering, were you all scheduled to be here for a month, and then you were about 2 weeks into it, and you had to pull up your stakes and go back home, right?
That is correct. Yep, we would normally be on site for the entire month of March, and this year it was about half of the month, about partway through, that was determined it was safer for all involved to work from different sites.
What other questions or comments do we have from the board? All right. Do I have we need a vote to accept the annual audited financial statements. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the audit as documented.
Thank you, Dr. Mackey, for making the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And who was that second from?
This is Ron.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Okay, seconded by the mayor. Any discussion? All right. Ms. Shellman, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Dr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mayor Nuremberg?
Aye.
Mr. Steen?
Aye.
The vote is 5-0, so the motion carries.
All right, we're going to move now to agenda item 12, which is committee reports. And as you all know, we've been working with the COVID-19 situation. We've been trying to be efficient about these meetings and streamline them. And so I was going to offer our trustees who are making reports today the option, if they'd like to go ahead and just submit their report for the record rather than reading it. Either way is fine. I know these reports have been posted. Am I correct? Somebody can confirm that?
Confirmed.
Yeah, so any member of the public could look at the report, but just give, if you all would like, give you the opportunity to say, rather than read it, I'm just going to submit it for the record. So we'll begin with the Operations Oversight Committee meeting held on February 20th, 2020, and that's you, Dr. Mackey.
I serve as the chair of the Operation Oversight Committee, Aligned Risk Subcommittee. Reports have been prepared for each of these meetings that were held on February 20th, 2020. These reports were included in the packet, and that was posted for this meeting. Instead of reading the report out loud, in the interest of time, I would like for the reports to be attached to the minutes for this meeting. Thank you.
Hearing no objection, that will be done, and we'll move to B, item B, which is Technology and Innovation Committee meeting held on February 20th, 2020. Ms. Gonzalez.
Hello?
Oh, We can hear you now. Would you like to read your report, or do you just want to submit it in the same way that Dr. Mackey did?
I would like to submit it in the same way that Dr. Mackey did. Let me make sure I have the verbiage correctly, and I'm sorry, lost my train of thought here. I've been so accurate until my turn. I would like to echo what Dr. Mackey said and ask that the report be submitted to the recorder as posted in lieu of reading it out loud. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Hearing no objections, that'll be done. And then, Dr. Mackey, you covered both of yours, so you covered A and C in your statement.
Correct.
Correct. All right, so then that would bring us to the last one, which is item 12D, which is the Personnel Committee meeting held on April 17th, 2020, and that's Mr. Kelly.
Yes, I'd like to submit mine to the record, as did Dr. Mackey and Janie.
All right, hearing no objection, that will be done. So that concludes agenda item 12, and so now we're at the point item 13, which is our executive session, and I'll ask our general counsel to go ahead and take us to the executive session.
Yes, sir. At this time, the board will recess into executive session to discuss matters that have been posted under Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, including attorney-client matters under Section 551.071, respective gifts or donations under 551.073, personnel under 551.074, security personnel or devices under 551.076, economic development under 551.087, competitive matters under 551.086, or to deliberate regarding security audits and devices under 551.089 and Section 418.183F of the Texas Government Code. It is 2:27. The board will move into executive session at this time.
Oh, Ms. Shellman, and I wanted to clarify for members of the public that are listening. So we're going to go into this executive session, and the way we're doing it, those of us who are going to participate in the executive session are going to hang up and dial into another number. But when we're through with that meeting, we'll hang up from that, and we'll call back to this number that we started with for this meeting, and we will reconvene to open session. However, there's no more, according to the agenda, there's no more business to conduct, so we'll be coming back into open session, but only for the purposes of adjournment.
That is correct, sir.
All right. Then let's go ahead, unless anybody has any questions or comments, we'll go ahead and move to the executive session. This is John Steen. We're now reconvening to open session, and I'll ask our General Counsel, Carolyn Shellman, to call the roll and also bring us out of executive session.
I will. Let's start with the roll call, please. Chair Steen?
Here.
Dr. Mackey? Dr. Mackey, are you here?
Yes, present.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Present. Here.
I believe Mayor Nuremberg is not here. Are you here, Mayor? No. Okay. So we do have a quorum, Mr. Steen. It is now 3:54 p.m. The board has concluded its closed session. It has returned to open session. During the executive session, no matters were discussed other than those that were posted. No votes were taken. So the board is ready to resume the open session.
All right. Thank you. The last item on the agenda is item 14, which is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion on the floor to adjourn the board meeting. Trustee Gonzalez?
Yes, so the motion by Trustee Gonzalez. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? I guess go ahead and call the roll on it, Ms. Shellman.
Yes, sir. Was that Dr. Mackey who seconded the motion?
No,
sorry,
it was me, Ed Kelly.
Mr. Kelly. Okay, thank you. Mr. Steen?
Aye.
Dr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Aye.
4 votes in
motion-
favor of adjournment.
All right, the motion carries and the meeting's adjourned. Thank you all very much.